All right, folks, this is a model lesson for 8th grade English Language Arts. Our objective with this lesson is to help students continue to practice their literary analysis writing skills. And so this is kind of building on the previous 2 lessons of close reading that we've been working on with our students. This lesson will have 2 texts by the same author. These are primary sources actually from Dwight D. Eisenhower. The first text is a letter or announcement that Dwight Eisenhower gave to soldiers prior to embarking on the D-Day invasion. And so I have the image of the letter split into 2 slides for you. However, I also have the PDF in our shared 8th grade ELA folder under Eisenhower lesson. There's the PDF document here. So you can provide students whichever method you think is best. But we're going to tell and remind students that we're using our LIDS acronym, Language, Images, Details, Diction, and Syntax, to help us close read this text. In our previous lessons, we gave them direction as to what parts of the LIDS tree to look for. But in this example, we're not going to do that. So remind students that they're looking for these things on the tree, but we're going to scaffold a little bit and do a little bit of gradual release by having them determine what they find. So I recommend reading the text out loud to your students and having them look at those things. So let's go ahead and do that now. Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well-trained, well-equipped, and battle-hardened. He will fight savagely. But this is the year 1944. Much has happened since the Nazi triumphs of 1940 through 41. The United Nations have inflicted upon the Germans great defeats in open battle man-to-man. Our air offensive has seriously reduced their strength in the air and their capacity to wage war on the ground. Our home fronts have given us an overwhelming superiority in weapons and munitions of war and placed at our disposal great reserves of trained fighting men. The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us all beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking. So, after you've read through it, students should be looking for those LIDS as you read. Break them into some breakout rooms, have them discuss with people what did they notice. In my first reading, I noticed short and long sentences, and specifically lots of declaration. So the use of exclamation point over and over and over again seems to be important. Personification of the enemy when they call him he. He will fight savagely. Personification of victory with a capital V. Those might be some things that they notice. But again, let the students kind of discuss with each other and determine what they find. Bring them back together, break it down as a group. Okay, what did we notice? And then lead them into the discussion of, okay, we've identified these things in the text. What overall tone words are embodying this letter? And remember, we talk about tone as a target. So some words are going to hit the dartboard target, and some are going to just hit the dartboard. We want those bullseye target words. So students might say, hey, based on the exclamations, all of these declaration sentences, the tone is excited, but that's on the dartboard. It's not a bullseye. We're looking for more of like words of compelling, urgent, those kinds of are more specific than just excited. So let the students kind of come to their own and brainstorm their own list of tone words, and as a class maybe come together and determine a couple of tone words. Then you pause here and say, I'm about to introduce a new text. This is actually a letter Eisenhower also wrote that he prepared just in case. just in case they lost the battle. In our speaker notes, I've hyperlinked the translation of that. That's also in our folder because it's very hard to read his handwriting in the original document. But his note reads, "Our landings in the Cherbourg Havre area have failed to gain a satisfactory foothold, and I have withdrawn the troops." He initially wrote, "The troops have been withdrawn," but he changed it to, "I have withdrawn the troops." He started writing this particular operation and changed it to, "My decision to attack at this time and place was based on the best information available." He initially joined those sentences and chose to end it, ultimately on his final draft. "The troops, the air, and the navy did all that bravery and devotion to duty could do. If any blame or fault attaches to the attempt, it is mine alone." So guide students in a discussion of, okay, what's the tone here? But first, have them identify what we see on the Lidge tree. I think we see short and long sentences. I think we see personification of bravery. I think we see the way he revised some of his work. You might point out that he was very passive at first, right? When he's saying the troops have been withdrawn, this particular operation, but revised it so that he took ownership and responsibility. I have withdrawn the troops. That use of the pronoun, my decision, pronoun there. These indicate that he's taking responsibility. So then coming up with a tone, this tone is very different than all those exclamations and victory and defeat and all that. This is a pretty somber tone. He's taking responsibility because he knows it's actually quite devastating. So he's feeling a burden, a weight of responsibility. Brainstorm some tone words as a class for this text as well. Once students have spent some time analyzing the tone in both texts, the initial speech that he gave to soldiers and the draft that was never released because we actually were successful at D-Day, that might be important to share with students as well so they understand the context of the history. Then this is where students are going to begin their writing process. So there is a Google Doc in our Eisenhower lesson folder that provides them a quick write prompt. They're going to write a paragraph responding to this question. What is Eisenhower's tone towards the soldiers prior to D-Day, and how is his tone different in his letter to address possible defeat? So I gave you an example of a response that I wrote. I highly recommend you write your own response as the teacher and provide that example for students, I think, or even better, write it in front of them during class, and then have them go off on their own using this template to write their response. So here's an example. Eisenhower's tone towards the soldiers prior to D-Day is invigorating, demonstrated through his unusual use of capitalization. You are about to embark on the Great Crusade, and we will accept nothing less than full victory. However, his tone is very different in his letter when he uses personal pronouns instead of passive voice. I have withdrawn the troops, my decision to a more somber tone, revealing that he is deeply concerned about the possibility of defeat and is reflecting on this in reflecting on this possibility, realizes the importance of taking responsibility for the potential loss and large numbers of deaths of Americans. Again, write your own example and share that with students. Note that verbs like uses and employs can be replaced with a number of power verbs, so you may provide that list to students as well. I recommend students turn this in on Canvas, and I would use this as some good formative assessment. How well are my students writing literary analysis up to this point? All right, let me know if you guys have any questions, and I can't wait to hear how the lesson goes.